made, and not for myself. It was documented that there was a sighting in eastern Pennsylvania in the skies. Now, do dark entities and alien beings have anything in common? I don't know. I know that I've encountered time lapses. I've encountered shadow people all the time, up until this very day, and every single day there will be a shadow person. I will not tell you I see a full figure face because I don't. What I see from the corner of the eye is a shadow person, a full-bodied, and it goes away. And it appears at the weirdest times, unexplainable. Last year, I contacted Eastern Paranormal Society, who Bill Cook is the owner. He's been on television for A Haunting and Destination America. And I wanted a team to come in and explain everything, that this wasn't true and maybe there was something wrong with me, to be quite honest. But unfortunately, when they came to my home with their whole team, I got the worst news ever. And that was that what I was dealing with is real. And that's how I met Carissa last June. Now, again, I skimmed through a lot of the story because it is an entire life story. But I'm going to let Carissa, if you don't mind, pick up her pieces of when she did the investigation here and what she encountered, and then we'll take all the questions.
Okay. Sounds great. Take it away, Carissa.
Hi. I just want to start this off by saying, I never believed in demonic entities before this case, and I just never encountered them. It was something that I just wasn't scared of. I didn't have any fear. I was new to the paranormal world. Like, the Horsefly Chronicles was about my third case. And, I just had no experience with them. I've been able to see and communicate with the dead probably since I was, born. I've had this talent since I can remember. My earliest memory of childhood is sitting in my crib and hearing my name being whispered at night and no one's there. But I've never encountered demonic entities. Now, I got a call from my team founder, Bill Cook, and all he told me about the case was that it was a man that thought he was haunted. It was booked for 3 weeks in advance, and I knew nothing else. I didn't really think much of it, to be honest with you. I got off the phone and I went about my day. But for the first time in my life, I felt like something was watching me, and I couldn't quite make out what it was, which freaked me out a little bit. It was almost like it had a veil over itself. And for me, that's rare. I'm used to being able to physically see and be able to communicate with things. So I thought that was strange, but I just brushed it off and went about my day. Weird little stuff started happening around my house. I rescue animals. I'm a big animal person besides the paranormal. And, I remember my cats and my dogs would run away crying or hissing, and I would find them in the top stair of the attic, which was unlike them, just whining at nothing, trying to get away from the house pretty much. I thought that was strange, but again, I tried to brush it off. There was this weird presence in my home, just very negative and just very dark feeling. And I kept getting the impression that something wanted to hurt me. But again, I just tried to brush it off and go about my day, The gas stoves in my house started turning on and off. I started hearing whispers. My husband at the time started hearing whispers, and he's a huge-time skeptic. He started hearing footsteps more and more. Now, I already live in a haunted house, but the stuff that was there before wasn't anything that would turn on a stove or turn it off. I knew whatever was haunting me at this time was related to this case. Then it started getting very bad. I remember I was laying in bed one night, and I saw this green orb with my eyes, and it got to the center of my ceiling, over my bed. When it got to the center of the ceiling over my bed, my cat ran out hissing and crying out of the room. I then got sexually attacked, and I won't go into detail about that, but the only thing I will say is it felt like someone lit matches and put it over my skin into the private areas.
Oh, wow.
That freaked me out. I've never experienced anything like that. I was fully awake. I was not asleep. I was fully awake when this happened. I rushed into the bathroom, and I remember I had a bottle of holy water, and I had this because I was going through a lot of stuff with this haunting. It just felt weird to me. I remember dumping the holy water in the bathtub and jumping in it. As soon as my skin hit the bathtub, I got a big bite mark and gashes in my thigh that appeared and disappeared within 5 minutes. My ex-husband actually saw it because he heard me scream and came running upstairs to see if I was okay. And he saw the bite marks and the gash appear and disappear. I remember getting out of the bathtub just feeling so violated and so, hurt. And I remember just laying naked on my bathroom floor crying, rocking back and forth and just crying. That was then when I called my team founder. And I kind of told him what was going on. And he didn't believe me. He's a big science guy. If he can't prove it, he doesn't believe it. So
got a couple of those, too.
Yeah, so he told me to come over. He was like, you know what, Krista, just come over. You need sleep, just come over to my house. So I went over there, and from the moment I walked in, he said that he smelled. Now, at this point, I was just so immune to being attacked. I hadn't slept, I hadn't showered, I hadn't eaten in about 5 days. I want to say this is about 5 days into it. I was a mess. I came in, and he said from the moment I walked in, he smelled the smell of sulfur. He also, the whole night that I was there, I actually got some sleep for the first night in a while because I actually felt safe and protected. He heard banging coming from upstairs. And when he would go up there, there would be nothing there. Now, he actually started thinking, I am being attacked by whatever is at Phil's house. So he went and got a nurse psychic on the team, Carrie, who's wonderful. She gave him this Native American cleansing stuff. And I remember taking a shower with it and just feeling better. I don't remember what the cleansing was called, but I remember taking a shower and just feeling better and feeling like it was finally over. The attacks were finally over. A couple days passed with nothing really big happening. I would have, psychic nightmares, I call them, and that would be, the demonic side of things, which I didn't really realize at the time, never dealing with the demonic before. And I would have nightmares of me being killed and, my friends being killed and all of that by these entities. But other than that, nothing was physically happening to me, so I felt relieved. And I remember being in bed with my ex-husband now at the time, and, it was about 3 a.m. in the morning, and we're just sitting there talking, about to go to bed, and all of a sudden, we have these huge windows. We live in an old farmhouse. All of a sudden, we heard this demonic, hair-raising sound coming from the outside the window. And the only way that I can describe it to you is the hair on your arm stands up straight up. And you just know that something evil's around. There's no other way to explain it. But we both cautiously looked to the window, and we saw this huge black bird that took up the window with red piercing eyes. And I will tell you right now, that was the first time in my life that I've ever been actually petrified. And I remember us both jumping out of the bed going, what the hell? What's that? And then when we came back into the room, when we finally worked enough courage up, it wasn't there. Now, I'm going to fast forward. I was at the point where I wasn't sure if I wanted to go to Phil's house or not at this point with the team. My whole team had known that I was being attacked. But I decided that there was a reason why I was being attacked, and there was a higher calling for me that, maybe I should go. Maybe I do belong here, and maybe I can help. So I went to the house. As soon as I walked in, now I don't know if you have abilities or not, but as soon as I walked in, the only way I can describe it is the energy was the same. It's almost like seeing a familiar face. You know it when you see it. And I
do have abilities. I do have abilities, but mine are more of the empathic type that I can feel the energies and stuff. I can't see them or hear them, but I can feel them. Yeah, it does.
You know it's the same thing, and the only way I can say it's like a fingerprint or the face. It's the same when you see it or feel it.
Right.
And I knew. As soon as I walked in, I went up to Phil, and I pretty much told him everything that had happened to me. I had told him, what I believed to be in this house, down to any of these names, which I won't release on radio. And I told him, I never believed in the demonic. I come from a family of people that have been Roman Catholic priests, have helped in exorcisms, but I personally never experienced it, so I didn't believe in it. And I told him all these details, things that hadn't been released in anything, and he just looked at me shocked. And I think that's when we really developed a friendship, was that point. Now, I went through with the investigation the first night. It was a crazy investigation. I've never since then have been on an investigation with so many Class A EVPs per hour. It was nuts. The hits that we were getting, it was about 11 per hour, which to me I think that's crazy of Class A.
Yeah, that's almost unheard of.
Yes. And I've never seen anything like this since then. And I the first night I came here, I asked, "Are you what visited me?" And in a voice mocking me, that we had to slow down dramatically, it says, in my voice almost, but you can tell it's not mine, it says, "Are you what visited me?" And then it calls me a vulgar name at the end of that.
Huh.
You know, it was like direct hits like that were just crazy. It was like direct answers to the questions I was asking. And I remember I started feeling sick. I started feeling not like myself. And I remember sitting on a couch, and Phil, this was the end of the investigation, and Phil was just talking to us some more, trying to pick our brain as to what we think is going on. And I remember sitting there, and I excused myself to the bathroom, and I looked in the mirror, and when I looked in the mirror, my eyes were turning all black. I remember walking out of that bathroom just confused as to where I was. And no one, you know, I remember this other psychic medium on the team grabbed me and said, "Carissa, we need to get you out of this house now." She took me outside, and I, sat hunched over on the curb, just, not feeling quite like myself. I didn't really know what was going on. And she's cleansing me, and as she's cleansing me, the light in Phil's car turned on. It was as if something was watching us. We got out of that house fast, and I remember the whole car ride back to the Team Founder's house, it smelled like gasoline, and we couldn't find out the source. I didn't want to go home that night. I was just recently separated. I knew I was going to go home, and I knew I was going to be messed with because of everything that happened. So I decided to stay at my Team Founder's house, and I remember us drinking wine and just talking about the investigation, and all of a sudden there was a loud knock at the inside of his door. I told him not to answer it, but he went up anyway and answered the door. Nothing was there, but as soon as he opened the door, the smell of sulfur came through the house.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to fast forward a little bit just because we're almost out of time, but, the psychic medium that actually helped me and cleansed me actually had a problem herself, and the more I think about it, the more I realize that demonic entities attack your weaknesses. They're not necessarily like these big, scary creatures that come out out of nowhere. They're more manipulative than that, and they will target your weak areas to make your life a living hell. And I remember, I guess a few days after she helped me, she actually tried to drive her car off a bridge, and, she hasn't been on any investigation since then. I haven't actually been able to get in touch with her, but I do think that it's somehow connected to her helping me. From day one, I was the target in the Horsefly home. For whatever reason, they always targeted me. And I feel like anyone that has since tried to help me has also been targeted. Everyone I date has weird things happen to them. All my friends. It doesn't have to be people in the paranormal. It seems to be anyone that tries to help me out with any aspect of my life gets on it. I built a connection with Phil. I told myself, I'm never going to step foot in this house again after what happened to me. But I started building this friendship with them. And I started noticing people in the paranormal weren't taking the story as seriously as they should and weren't necessarily believing it. And from my experiences, I knew that it was true. And, I knew what I saw. And I knew what my ex-husband had experienced and what Bill Cook had experienced. So I decided to move into this case, and I lived here for 4 months documenting the haunting. There was a lot of crazy experiences while living here. I remember for 3 nights in a row, 3 different family members, including myself, saw a demonic-like dog that came out from outside and then would disappear. And I didn't describe it to the children what I saw. I was the first one that saw it. Phil and I were the first 2 that saw it. And we didn't describe it to the children. We try to shelter them from this as much as we possibly can. And the next day, one of the kids comes running in, screaming that he sees this demonic-like dog outside. And he actually described the same thing that we had been seeing. So I thought that was crazy. I remember another day, Phil and I were outside talking about the possibility of bringing in a priest to the home. And when we're outside, one of his sons was outside playing. We were whispering so he couldn't hear us because, again, you don't like to bring the children into these things or have their lives affected any more than they already are. And all of a sudden, the kid picks up a rock and smashes this bunny's head with it, killing it. And you just hear this horrible screaming. And we're all screaming at the kid, like, why did you do that? And he screamed back that he did not remember doing it. And it's safe to say that stopped us from bringing up the talk of a priest coming here to help for, I guess, the rest of the summer. Like Phil was saying, we experienced time-lapse. This is kind of funny. The one night, it's just funny because the irony. The one night we're watching the movie Signs, me, Phil, and one of his children. And after the movie, we decided to just walk into the living room. Into the kitchen. We were going to have coffee. From the walk to the living room to the kitchen, It's about a 2-minute walk. An hour and a half had passed. That none of us remember what had happened, and we all felt very weird. You know, it's big